I don't talk about this, okay? I have never said where that actually comes from. There are women listening to the show who are hesitating on a decision right now, who are standing at the door that feels maybe too unknown, too risky, too far from a plan, and they need to hear this story. It's about why I have never once in my life waited for the right time. I was 20 years old. 20. I was in college doing what I do at 20, right? Figuring out who I was, making plans, assuming I had all the time in the world to figure out the rest. And then my father passed away unexpectedly. No warning, no time to prepare, no chance to say the things I want to say. If you knew, it was the last conversation. I had no idea.
Sometimes the biggest business lessons don't come from business at all. They come from the moments that completely change how you see life. If you've ever been waiting for the right time to take the next step,
All right, welcome back to the Digital Shift podcast. And I'm going to start by saying I don't talk about this. That in all the episodes, all the trainings, all the content I've put out over the years about building businesses and betting on yourself and moving through the unknown without fear, I have never said where that actually comes from. So today, I'm going to. Not because it's easy. It's absolutely not. But because I think there are women listening to the show who are hesitating on a decision right now, who are standing at the door that feels maybe too unknown, too risky, too far from a plan, and they need to hear this story. So this episode is not about GHL. It's not about automations or AI or pipelines like you usually hear from me. It's about why I have never once in my life waited for the right time. So, welcome back to the Digital Shift. I'm your host, Natasha Roberson. I am the Customer Experience Strategy Officer at Selfmade. So sit down, breathe. This one's definitely different. All right. So, I was 20 years old, 20. I was in college doing what I do at 20, right? Figuring out who I was, making plans, assuming I had all the time in the world to figure out the rest. And then my father passed away unexpectedly. No warning, no time to prepare, no chance to say the things I want to say. If you knew, it was the last conversation. I had no idea, right? So I remember that day, I was actually in athletic training at University of Toledo, and we were on the road for a road game and was with the team. We had just got back into town, and I was getting into my car at the University of Toledo, and here's my mom. What is she doing here? Mind you, I lived like an hour away from campus where my mom lived. I'm like, what is she doing here? And I knew something wasn't right. And that was when they told me he had passed away. And I was like, oh, I don't even recall the words. I just remember, why is she here? She said that, and I just took off running. No idea, right? And then it was a blur. It was an absolute blur. So I'm not going to tell you that I had it all figured out in the days after that, because I didn't, right? Grief doesn't work that way. You just move through it the best you can. I remember having to do, because my parents were divorced, so I was the one that had to do it all, plan all the things. My brother was 16. I had to plan all the things, do all the things. I had to become I was an adult, but I had to become an adult at that moment. And he owned businesses and had to really just figure things out, right? I didn't know what I was doing. I had to move through it the best that I could. I had to ask for help and mentorship from my grandfather and other people in our life. But something settled in me in those weeks and months that I don't think ever left. We are absolutely not promised tomorrow. And I think all of you know that, or you kind of think you know that, but you don't feel that. That's not a motivational quote to me. That's not something I saw on a t-shirt. That's something I learned at 20 years old. Watching someone I loved here one day and gone the absolute next day. And it changed the way I make every single decision from that moment forward. Like every decision I have made is so different than how I would have made it when I was 19 or when I was 43 like I am now and not having that pivotal transition in my life. So what I'll say is I stopped waiting, I stopped overthinking, and I stopped asking for permission and I stopped looking for guarantees because I absolutely knew that no guarantee was coming, not for me and not for anyone. And if I was going to live the life I wanted to live, I had to start building it now, not when the conditions were perfect, not when I felt ready, but right then and there, right then and there, right? So let me walk you through what that actually looked like for me in real life. So I finished college. I went into athletic training and physical therapy. That was the plan. And it was a good plan. It was a great plan. I understood bodies, movement, how people heal. I understood people, right? And I remember like loving the fact, like, man, if I can get somebody driven, somebody gets injured and their passion is to get back on the field at the collegiate level or at the pro level, and they wanted to get back out there. They were driven. They wanted to work. They would do what it took. I loved working with those individuals. I was that individual, right? And I could help these people get from where they were to where they wanted to be. And it was amazing. And so I loved it. Went from the college level. I became the head athletic trainer at a high school, very high elite athletes I was working with. But here's what was happening underneath the surface. All right. I want to dig in here. I was watching the people around me stay. And what I mean by stay, they were staying in their same role, staying in the same building, staying because it was safe and familiar and known. And I just kept thinking, like, is this the whole path? Right? Not because anything was wrong with what I was doing, but because I had in me this thing that got installed at 20 years old that kept asking, what else? What's next? What door is there that I haven't opened yet? Because life is short, right? Most people would just have stayed in the athletic training. I had an incredible job right out of high school, crazy awesome job. Everybody would have wanted that. And I totally get how being comfortable and staying, it's easier. Staying is logical, right? Staying is what you're supposed to do when you've invested that much education and time into a path. I didn't stay, not because I was brave, but because I understood something that most people don't understand until much later in life. Fighting the direction that's pulling you where the friction lives, that friction that you should stay, be practical, don't risk it feeling, that's not wisdom. That's fear dressed up as wisdom. Okay. And I had learned too young that life is too short to spend it in friction. Absolutely too short. So I moved into what personal training and the wellness space and really like setting my own schedule, right? And in this chapter, this one taught me something specific about what I actually was built for, okay? I wasn't just working with bodies anymore. I was working with women who were trying to rebuild something, their health, yes, but really their confidence, their sense of what was possible for them, their belief that they deserve to feel good, right? And so what was really cool is in that role, I not only was I was able to really help a person go from, man, so like, ugh, I don't love me, I don't love what I'm doing, I hurt, all these things, to they're excelling in their life. They were excelling in what they were doing. And I'm like, man, this is awesome, right? This is absolutely awesome. And I was also seeing that in myself because I went from an employee as an athletic trainer to a business owner. And I had to grow and evolve and become the next level of who I was. So, it was 20 years of rebuilding people, and I loved it. That's not something I say lightly, right? That's what the work actually was. And helping someone see what they're capable of, helping them take one step forward when everything in them is saying to stay still. And I was good at it. I was really good at it. Not because I had the perfect system, but because I had walked through the hardest thing I'd ever experienced and came out the other side still moving forward. Right? I could sit with somebody and in their hard place and not flinch because I had been in mine. This chapter wasn't a detour, I tell you. I know that now. It was training for everything that came next. All right. And so then came network marketing. Oh my gosh, I had no clue what network marketing was, right? I can already hear some of you shifting in your sheets. That's okay. Stay with me. All right. I want you to stay with me because that was never in my plan. Because this chapter is one of the most times where people would have run from, right? When network marketing is given to, like, an opportunity is given to somebody, they run the other way. And if I had been that person who just made decisions from fear and I ran the other way, or from what other people thought, or from the need for things to look a certain way on the outside, I would have ran too. But I wasn't that person. And my father made sure of that. I saw something in that space, not just the product or a company or the income opportunity. I saw a model. I saw what it looked like to build a team, to lead people, to create something that grew beyond any one person could do alone. And so when I jumped into network marketing, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what it was about. All I knew is there was massive possibility and there was a ton of life-changing experiences happening. So when I jumped in, I go all in. I don't go half-ass. I go all in and I'm like, let's walk through this door. And we're walking through this door all in. And literally head down, helping people, staying true to my purpose in life of helping somebody go from where they are to where they want to be and helping them elevate as a human. That's what I focused on. And we as a team went from 0 to 3 million in 1 year. 3 million. It was insane, right? And so that was a quick one. I made in income wise in literally a year and 6 days. I made $1 million with this company. If I would have let fear or other people's opinions slow me down, that wouldn't have happened. But no, I stayed true to my purpose, elevating humans, helping humans. And then from there, my journey in network marketing, we did over $325 million in online sales. And I was able to help thousands of the people find their purpose and to elevate their life in the health space. Okay. And I built a multi-million-dollar network marketing business. Like crazy, right? 325 million. And I want to be clear about what that actually taught me because it wasn't about the money. Absolutely not about the money. It taught me systems. It taught me the duplication. It taught me that the only way to grow something beyond yourself is to build something that works without you needing to be the one doing every single thing. Does that sound familiar? It should. That is the exact principle I teach in every GHL episode of this show. None of it is wasted. Not one chapter, not one pivot, not one decision that looked from the outside like a left turn. Every single one of those turns was building something, right? And then came self-made. Okay, just give me a call. We were friends in the industry, right? We knew of each other. We weren't on the same team or anything like that. She called. She's like, "Hey, I want to talk to you about something. I have this opportunity. I'd love to, have lunch. Are you open to it?" I'm like, "Sure." I didn't know what she was talking about. I didn't know. I just said yes, and I showed up to that lunch. And what? I didn't know. I didn't know anything about GHL at that time. I knew about systems. I knew about people, and I knew how to build systems and people together. Okay. So I stepped into GHL and into this world of systems and automation. And I thought, this is it. This is the thing I've been building towards without knowing I was building towards it. 20 years of rebuilding people, a decade of learning what duplication and systems and leadership actually looked like in practice, a career full of pivots that everyone else thought were risks and I knew were just the next door opening. All of it led here. And here's what I know now that I want you to hear really clear. Okay. The thing that looks like it doesn't belong in your resume, the chapter that felt like a wrong turn, the industry you stepped into that nobody understood. It belongs. It always belonged. You just couldn't see the full picture yet. He could, and he does. The path was always there. Your job was just to follow it without fighting it. Okay. So here's what I want to leave you with. When life isn't promised, and it isn't, not for any one of us, you show up differently. You make decisions differently. You stop waiting for what perfect moment, because you understand in your bones that the perfect moment is a myth, right? You make the move, you trust your gut, you follow the path that's pulling you, even when you can't see where it leads, especially when you can't see where it leads. Because here's the truth about the unknown: you're not in control of it. You never were. So fighting that, white knuckling every decision, needing every guarantee before you take a leap, that is what creates friction. That friction is not protection. It's just fear with a louder voice than your gut. When you stop fighting the direction and start following the path, things are going to move. Doors are going to open. Industries you never planned to step in, they call your name. Skills you built in one chapter show up exactly when you did in the next one. It's crazy, you guys, right? And years later, you look back and you think, oh, wow, that was all connected. And it was always connected. So don't dwell on the decisions you already made. Don't sit on the what ifs of the paths you didn't take. You don't know what tomorrow looks like. And spending today replaying yesterday is a trade I will never make. My father taught me that. Not with words, with the way his absence landed in my chest at 20 years old and never fully left. So he is why I show up every single day. He is why I say yes to the door when it opens and I don't even flinch. He is why I exist in self-made. Okay. If you've been sitting on a decision, if you something pulling at you and you need to talk yourself and you're talking yourself out of it, I want you to ask yourself one question. Is it actually a bad idea? Or is it just unknown? Okay. Because unknown and bad are not the same thing. They just feel the same when fear is doing all the talking. Okay. If you're in that place right now with your business, if you have GHL and you don't know what to do next, or what you're looking at in automations and AI and wondering where do you even start, this is not a sign you're not ready. That is the unknown knocking. We built the free GHL business audit for exactly that moment. It looks at where your business is now, shows you the gaps, and gives you one clear path to start. No overwhelm, no guessing, just clarity on the next step. So go to self-made.biz/GHL-audit. You can find that down in the show notes. It's free. It's it today. And if anything, if the episode meant something to you, if it hits somewhere real, share it with a woman in your world who needs to hear that her path makes sense. Even the parts that look like they don't, especially those parts. And guess what? I'll see you on the next episode, because what I shared today is not what I normally share, but I felt it needed to be shared. So have an incredible day, and I'll see you on the next one.
If you're getting value from these conversations, don't let this be the only episode that you listen to. Every episode of this podcast is designed to help you build a smarter business, one with real systems behind the scenes, not just ideas, motivation, or hustle. We break down what's actually working right now when it comes to automation, content, follow-up, and scaling without the burnout. If you want to see how all of this comes together in real life, I highly recommend watching the Self-Made Hub demo. Inside the Self-Made Hub, you'll see how entrepreneurs turn content into leads, and leads into conversations, and conversations into consistent sales using simple automated systems that don't feel overwhelming or cold. You can watch the demo anytime at self-made.biz/demo. Then queue up another episode, because the shift doesn't happen from one conversation. It happens when you start connecting all the dots. And I'll see you in the next episode.